Welcome to the Dynasty Dugout Show, a podcast covering all things minor league baseball. Get a front row seat to the action with everything you need to know about the future stars of Major League Baseball. And now, here's your host, Chris Clegg.
Welcome into another edition of the Dynasty Dugout Show. Today is Friday, February the 7th. We're going to talk third base prospects. We're inching ever closer to spring training. We're just 2 days away from the first team's pitchers and catchers reporting. Chicago Cubs pitchers catchers report this Sunday, February the 9th. So we are almost there. The weather's warming up here in South Carolina, and baseball is almost back. Before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by Connect Roasters. I've got my mug right here full of Connect Roasters coffee. Well, I'll say full of. I've drank half of it at this point. Connect Roasters is Ian Happ's coffee company. They do tremendous work in the community. They give back, and they make a really good coffee. If you want Ian Happ to make your coffee, go to connectroasters.com. Use the code Dynasty Dugout to get his Gold Glove blend. Buy one, get one 50% off. You can also use the link in the description. Get you the same thing. It's a great deal. It's great coffee. I drink it every day, sometimes twice a day, so go check that out. Also want to give a special shout-out to Jack McMullen, Just Baseball, former Indianapolis Indians AAA broadcaster. He's now the play-by-play radio announcer for the Miami Marlins. Congrats, Jack. Awesome to see your hard work paying off. Tremendous voice in the game, great broadcaster, and well-deserved promotion. All right, let's dive in. Third base prospects are definitely not as deep as the shortstop prospects, which we did 2 episodes for, but third base still has some talent. We're going to dive in off the top with Matt Shaw. We've talked about him a little bit because he plays all over the field. We highlighted him in the second base episode and the shortstop episode. But Matt Shaw is going to be the everyday third baseman for the Chicago Cubs as things stand as we're talking on Friday, February the 7th. That could change. There's talk of Alex Bregman coming in. If they sign Alex Bregman, then what in the world is going to happen? It's a great question. But I still think there's an opportunity for Matt Shaw even if Bregman comes in. Here's why. Nico Hoerner's hurt. He had flexor tendon surgery last offseason. Yes, he's back throwing and taking infield now, but I still think there's a possibility he misses some time. Shaw could go over to second base. Shaw's natural at second base. He's good at third base too. Also, they want to trade Nico Hoerner. There's been rumors of that for a year now. So a trade of Nico Hoerner would make sense to give Matt Shaw some runway and for the Cubs to address other needs on this team. Now, Shaw, in my opinion, could be the NL Rookie of the Year favorite because, one, he's going to be in the lineup on day one, and two, there's such a high floor. Like, Matt Shaw's adjustability and the way he hits all pitch types, he controls the barrel well. There's so many things you want to see. They give him such a high floor to hit out of the gate. A lot of prospects struggle initially. I don't think that that's going to be the case for Shaw because the contact skills are good. It's above average contact across the board. It's above average power. And it's above average speed. You look at the numbers, everything's kind of there. I mean, you 105 mile an hour 9th percentile EV from Shaw, that's above average. 91 average EV, that's, borderline plus. That's really good. He doesn't try to force power. He hits it to all fields. He gets the ball in the air often enough. It's a lower pull percentage than you like to see, but I don't think that matters all that much for Shaw. Like, we're looking at a potential 2020 guy out of the gate for Matt Shaw with a good batting average. So my Rookie of the Year favorite. Coby Mayo. Mayo is interesting. Mayo's a tough one because he is completely blocked in Baltimore. I still like Coby Mayo long-term. I don't like him for redraft as things stand. Could he be traded before the season? Yes. Could they trade someone else to open a spot for Mayo? Yes. Both could happen. As things stand, it's hard to see Coby Mayo getting more than 150 plate appearances. I mean, it just is what it is. He came up and got a cup of coffee last year. It was like 40 plate appearances, and he struggled. Now, everybody's off the boat of Coby Mayo. Makes no sense. I mean, we are talking high-end power. It's like a 107 mile an hour 9th percentile with a 115 max EV. Like, those are very strong numbers. It's 30 home run bat, for sure. And Mayo has made substantial improvements with his hit tool. Now, it probably plays closer to average. Like, it's an average hit tool, but it could be a really good hit tool with the power. I mean, there's adjustability. Like, he can make this work. I'm not worried about the MLB debut at all. I mean, he hits fastballs extremely well. And he hits velocity extremely well. He had a 725 slug against fastballs with a 95-mile-an-hour average EV. That's absurd. There are some concerns with breaking balls. That's the one thing I'll note. I mean, he hit 219 with a 40% whiff rate against sliders last year. So you got to look at that and say, can he pick that up and improve it? I believe so. I mean, there's massive power. There's plenty of extra base hit power. He's 23 years old. Does he get the runway he needs this year? Maybe not. Does he get traded? I mean, that might be the best case for Coby Mayo, who I still really like. I'm not worried about Mayo. I think the Orioles are still very much excited about him. I really believe in this bat long term. Cam Smith, my third-ranked third base prospect, formerly Chicago Cubs, first-round pick in 2024, traded to the Houston Astros this offseason. Cam Smith is now easily the number one prospect in Houston. How does he fit in this picture long-term now that they have Christian Walker for 3 years at first base and they have Isaac Paredes, I think, for 3 more years of team control at third? That's a good question. But Smith's bat is good. Any player broke out during their college season last year, it was Smith. At Florida State, I mean, he was a draft-eligible sophomore. He hit 16 home runs, had 22 doubles in 66 games, and he slashed .387, .488, .654. He cut his strikeout rate in half from his freshman year, dropping it from 28%, 28.7%, to 14.9%, and the walk rate jumped up to 13.7%. This was all fueled by improved contact and better swing decisions. The contact rate jumped from 70% up to 83%. 70% is poor by college standards, 83% is really good. The chase rate fell from 33% to 21%. And the end zone contact jumped to 89%. Those are very good marks for college standards and for a young third baseman. Smith's home run output was actually a bit lower on a per plate appearance basis in 2024 than 2023, but his 9th percentile exit velocity jumped from 106.5 to 111. That's elite. The average EV jumped over 7 miles an hour, up to 92 miles an hour. That's really, really good. So the question is, does it stick? Does the contact jump stick from college to pro ball? And it did. I mean, you look at what he did in his pro debut. It was a 77% contact rate, 84% end zone contact. It was a low chase rate and a 106 mile an hour 90th. Cam Smith also has continued to improve all offseason. Like, you look at what Cam Smith did, you get the feedback. I think Cam Smith is going to be very legit for a very long time. So I'm very excited about Cam Smith and his potential. Cam Collier is an interesting player. He may move to first base long term. He's third baseman right now, so we're going to talk about him here. He had a very up and down 2024 season, but at the end of the day, he spent the year in high A. He was one of the younger players in high A. If you remember, he actually graduated high school early. He went to JUCO and played at Chipola, which is like the highest level JUCO. And then he was drafted like as a very, very young player. I think he may have been still 17 at the time of the draft. He hit 20 home runs last year in his age 19 season, slashed .248, .355, .443 with 42 extra base hits. The underlying data was really good. And Collier set a new max EV of 112 last year. He had a 106 mile an hour 9th percentile. Those are both very strong marks, especially for his age. And the contact showed to be, I think, improved. He had a 75% overall contact rate, which will play. Like, that's a really good mark. So I'm not all that worried about that. The chase rate was good. We saw his air percentage jump by 10 percentage points last year. Ground balls were a major issue in 2023. And Collier made that leap that he needed to do in order to get to more home run power. And it worked, and it paid off. So I think Cam Collier is legit. He probably goes to AA. Southern League's a hard place to hit. So the numbers might not look all that great on the surface, but I wouldn't worry all that much. The Southern League just is, unless they change, they tweak things in the Southern League every year. So it could be the case where we see maybe it is more hitter friendly. It's been very pitcher friendly the last few years. So that is something to keep an eye on. I think Luke Adams, the Milwaukee Brewers, is very fascinating. Most don't have Adams as high as I do. And I get it. Watching him, he's funky. The swing is very funky, even though he cleaned up some mechanics in 2024. It's very unconventional. He did calm the pre-swing movement down a lot. And the results on the surface weren't good. Like, this is a weird slash line to read off. One of the weirder slash lines in minor league baseball. 227, 443, 397 with 11 home runs and 27 extra base hits. So to see the OBP that much higher than the slug is kind of absurd. And here's the thing. Luke Adams hits the ball really hard. He had a 106 mile an hour ninth percentile. Also important, remember, he was young, 19, 20-year-old last year. He had a 106 90th, which is right there with Cam Collier. He had several balls above 110. Like, you look at these numbers, and it's like, okay, like all of a sudden, like Luke Adams looks like a little bit of a power hitter. The contact rates are extremely good with Luke Adams. 79% overall, 86% end zone. Yeah, it's kind of weird because he doesn't swing the bat all that often. It was one of the lower swing rates in the minors at 30%. So you look at it and you're like, all right, how does this work? He chased it a 15% clip, which is really good, but he has to swing the bat more, especially on pitches in the zone. He walked 78 times and he was hit by 40 pitches, which is absurd. He struck out 89 times, but he was hit 40 times. I think it was the highest mark in baseball last year, which is really crazy. So here's the thing. Adams gets to the pool side often enough, and he hits enough line drives and fly balls to make the profile work. He's also shown pretty efficient base stealing ability. He stole 28 times on 38 attempts. Like, that's good marks. And he posted a 154 WRC plus in high A as a 20-year-old, and he started the year as a 19-year-old. Like, I think there's still a lot of questions here to be answered with Luke Adams, but I like this profile a lot. Very interested in what he brings to the table and seeing if he can really make this work. So that's a fun one to watch because he's kind of a sneaky bat. It could be really good, and if he pops off this year, I wouldn't be shocked at all. We'll go back to the Cincinnati Reds. I think we talked a little bit about Sal Stewart in the second base episode, so I won't hit on him a ton. He's played some third, he's played some second. Where he ends up long-term is a question. It's a 6'3" frame. There's a lot to like, but you can go back to that second base episode, and you can listen to what I think about Sal Stewart. Go back to the Brewers. There's a lot of Reds and Brewers here early on. Talk about Eric Bitonti. Bitonti could go multiple ways this year. I wouldn't be shocked. He'll be 19 years old this year. He's 6'4". He's physically gifted. He's like this highly athletic, like huge frame masher. I mean, it's elite exit velocities for his age, but he also moves pretty well for his size. He was one of the youngest players in the 2023 draft. He turned 18 in November after the draft. He began 2024 at the complex, and then he went to single A. Between both levels, it was a 282, 402, 544 slash. He hit 16 homers and 42 extra base hits. I mean, it's an interesting, like, when you watch him, it's kind of interesting. He steps in the bucket a bit, like he's a left-handed bat, he's stepping towards the first baseman. His lower half flies open really early. It does leave him susceptible to pitches on the outer half, but the results have spoken for themselves. I mean, he had a home run at 111 miles an hour last year as an 18-year-old, but he had a 90th percentile EV of 106, which for an 18-year-old is elite. His air percentage of 73%, even more impressive, which is not surprising with his natural uppercut swing. Like, he gets the ball in the air often, and he gets to the pool side often as well. He had an impressive barrel rate, a very high xWOBA. The power is plus or better. Here's the question marks for me. Bitonti had a 67% contact rate and a 77% end zone contact rate. He did show a good feel for spin and the strike zone. He chased at a 20% clip. If the contact skills do get cleaned up, Bitonti could move into like a top 25 type prospect. He could also flounder against better pitching because the concerns against breaking ball contact and on the outer half, and he could fall tremendously. But I really believe in Eric Bitonti's ability to hit for power. It's just, can he clean up the contact enough? We shall see. I've got Bryce Matthews next. We highlighted him in part 2 of the shortstop episode just to show you the depth of the shortstop. Like, he was 29th, I think, among shortstops and 8th among third base prospects. So big difference there. But we really hit on Bryce Matthews there. Go check that out. Part 2 of the shortstop episode. Brayden Taylor's who I want to talk about next. Taylor's fascinating to me. Everybody loves Brayden Taylor. Understandably so. If you look on the surface, he's really good. He's got the pedigree. He's a former first-round pick. He's got the name value. He had 20 home runs last year. He had 55 extra base hits, and he stole 29 bags. So anybody that's looking at the stat line probably is like, okay, Brayden Taylor's a top prospect. I don't see it. I've seen Brayden Taylor a ton. I saw him after his draft in Charleston. I saw him a ton with Bowling Green. Let's say Greensboro, Bowling Green this year, high A for the Rays. And he went to Double A and he struggled. I look at this profile and I don't see a ton that stands out to me. Here's the thing. The surface numbers look great. College hitters should hit and perform in single A and high, and that's what he did. But the underlying data does not suggest anything that's better than average, in my opinion. The contact rates are fine. I mean, it was like, I think a 70% contact rate overall. Like it's average. The end zone contact rates are average. The power's well below average. It was a ninth percentile below 101 miles an hour. I mean, Taylor's 22, and that's like slightly worse than average for his age, like given where the ninth percentile EV was. He's really not all that athletic when you see him. He doesn't run that well. He's a clunky runner. Like, I've got below average clock times on him. So you see those stolen base numbers in the lower minors, and it's like, all right, this guy's going to run. He's going to hit for power. I don't know. I mean, is Taylor like a 15 home run bat that steals 10 bases? Like, that's what I project. Maybe he steals less than 10. I just don't see this plus power, plus speed that people that look at the stat line think. It's just not there. The data's not there. I've seen him in person 10 times. Like, I just don't see it. I mean, he's an interesting player. He's versatile in the field. He may play third. He could play second. I mean, he can even play short. Like, I've seen him play short before. I don't know. Like, I look at Brayden Taylor and I think, like, all right, this is a major leaguer. Like, is he an average regular? Maybe he's slightly below average. Like, when we're talking about MLB standards, like, he might be like a 1.5 WAR player. It's a good player. But Brayden Taylor's talked about, like, I've seen him like in top 25s overall. Sell Brayden Taylor if you're in a fantasy league and people value him that high. You'll be happy you did. I mean, he went to AA and he struggled pretty tremendously. I was going to pull up the strikeout rate. It was not good in AA. He got exposed against better pitching. I think it was like, it was 37% strikeout rate in AA. Better pitching. Contact skills have always been worse than average. I think he's a below average hitter, just given the contact rates. Nobody else really sees it that way. Apparently, I'm on an island with Brayden Taylor. I think he's a fine player. I don't think he's a top 25 prospect. I don't think he's a top 50 prospect. Frankly, Brayden Taylor's not a top 100 prospect for me. I like the kid, like the player, but the perceived value is so high on him right now. Cash out, see what you can get. Zach Dezenzo's interesting at the Houston Astros. I mean, he came up last year with the Astros. He had his bumps in the road, and now he's blocked, unfortunately. They've talked about giving him some reps in the outfield, which I think will be interesting. He's a good athlete. He's 6'5", 220. He might be able to handle a corner spot, and that outfield in Houston is bad. Like, Jacob Melton could get in quickly because it's a bad outfield right now. They're talking about getting Jose Altuve out there in the outfield. Interesting situation. Anyway, Dezenzo, he was very, very good right out of the draft in 2022. He's a 12th rounder. He was very, very good in 2023. And 2024 saw him perform again, and he debuted with the Astros. The power's good. It's a 106/90. That's plus power. He did see a pretty large ground ball uptick in 2024, which did kind of tank the home run power a bit. He still hit the ball hard, though. 90-mile-an-hour average EVs above MLB average. That 106/90th will absolutely play. It's good OBP skills. He walks at a high clip. The contact rates are slightly better than average, but probably closer to average based on MLB samples. And he's a strong athlete. Yeah, I think that Dezenzo is interesting. The biggest problem with him now is that he is completely blocked and has nowhere to play. Can that change really quick? If he learns the outfield, if he gets traded, yeah, that could be fixed. Juan Brito I talked about in the second base episode because he's going to be the starting Guardian second baseman. Go check that out. Brady House is a great talking point. I think that House's perceived value is fascinating. Brady House is one of those guys that has been famous for a long, long time. House was a 14-year-old showcase circuit star. When people know the name for that long, there's always going to be a lot higher perceived value. Same with Blaze Jordan. Just is what it is. PJ Morlando is one that's been known from this past summer's draft class. Like, Morlando's been a name for a long, long time. Brady House, I went to see him play in high school during his senior year. I saw him against Dylan Lesko. And Lesko at the time was like the best prep pitcher in the class, and he held his own. I think House is still a player to like, but there's some things that have to improve. The approach has got to be cleaned up. We're talking about chase rates around 38%. That's really bad. He doesn't take a walk. He walked 31 times all of 2024. That was a 5.7% walk rate. That's not going to play at all. He struck out north of 26% of the time. The power did improve in 2024. He had a career best 19 home runs. He had 21 doubles and a triple. House has also dealt with injuries, so this year was a get healthy and perform kind of year. He's just too aggressive. And one of the highest swing rates in the minors at 58%, and that chase rate came right along with it. I mean, the contact on pitches in the zone helps make up for it. He had an 81% in zone contact rate. If it was 58%, we wouldn't even be talking about Brady House. 81% in zone contact rate, which is fine. I don't know. I mean, there are some worries about how he performs. People think he's going to be up in 2025. I don't see that. He needs a full year of development in AAA. I mean, it just is what it is. There are things that can be cleaned up. If he can get some more game power, great. I think be an everyday third baseman still. I think it's a late season call-up at best. So he's one to watch. Somebody I do want to talk about that I think could really pop off. Jesus Baez, the New York Mets. Baez is fascinating. He plays a couple spots. He plays around the infield. He's a smaller guy at 5'10", 180. He was like breaking out completely in 2024. He got hurt, unfortunately. Season ended in early July, with a meniscus tear, and he had surgery. He's expected to make a full recovery. He's expected to return to action in 2025. He's small but mighty. He had 232 batted ball events, which is a lot, so it's a good sample here. Before the injury, he had a 104.5 mile-an-hour ninth percentile. That was really good for a small 19-year-old. The average EV was north of 89 miles an hour. He's aggressive. He chased it at 32% clip, but he did make up for it with contact, 75% overall and 83% end zone. He also handles all pitch types well, which is something important to look at. It's pretty consistent contact on all pitch types and high velocity. Those things are important to note. Now, the injury does put a damper on things, but I think once Baez comes back, if he returns to full health, Jesus Baez is going to be a name to know. Pittsburgh Pirate name that I absolutely love is Jhonny Severino. Severino's been on my radar for a while. He was a DSL breakout with the Brewers. They traded him to Pittsburgh. And honestly, when I went to the Florida Complex League, I think he was one of the best players that I saw there. Just pure performance, the body, the upside, the swing, everything that he did checked a lot of boxes for me. Now, he's listed at 6'2", 185. I think he's definitely closer to 6'4" at this point. There's a lot of projection left. There's good power in the profile. He was good in the field. He played short and third when I saw him, and he looked good there. This is a player that I thought gave 110% on every play. It's a high-effort player on every play, which I like to see. He made some really good plays. Very smooth in the field as well. I mean, you look at the data, and it's like not eye-popping, but there's still power in the bat. There's good contact skills. Between complex and single A last year, it was 271, 341, 528. He had 16 home runs, 18 doubles, and 6 triples, and he stole 16 bases. He's a good athlete. He runs well. I think there's going to be more to tap into here with Jhonny Severino. He's definitely a name to watch. I wouldn't be shocked if Severino takes a big step forward in 2025. Gino Groover's a fascinating player to me. Arizona Diamondbacks third baseman. He missed the first 3 months with a wrist injury. He came back, and his surface numbers were really good. Everybody was like, all right, Gino Groover's in full breakout mode. He had a home run barrage. Over his final 17 games, he hit 7 home runs over the final 17. He had 4 doubles. You look, and I think people are going to push Gino Groover way up. Right? It's a powerful-looking frame, and he did that to end the year. The exit velocity marks just aren't there. It was a well below average ninth percentile at 101, especially for his age and frame. So I don't like to see that. The contact skills are really good with Gino Groover, 84% overall mark, super good. I saw him in the Arizona Fall League, and there are some things to like with Gino Groover, no doubt about it. I like Groover. I'm just not sure that I'm willing to go as high as most are on him because everybody looks at the surface numbers and they're like, oh yes, Gino Groover's a stud. And there's some power questions under the hood for me, just given the exit velocity output. I mean, he's physically maxed. He is a good athlete, but I'm not sure how much more power he gets to here. A couple more before we get out of here. Mike Boeve, Milwaukee Brewers, a lot of Milwaukee Brewers corner infielders that we're talking about here. second rounder in 2023. He was probably the hottest start of any pro hitter drafted that year right out of the gate. He's a unique profile. It's a high contact profile at the corner infield spot. I mean, he had an 85% contact rate, which is really impressive. The chase rate was very, very good. He's got a great eye. He walks at a high clip. He's posted the 9th percentile exit velocity was right at MLB average, which is good. Most of his balls are not hit all that hard, which is concerning. And a lot of his hardest hit balls are like line drive ground ball types, not in the air. Yeah, I think that Boeve is capable of getting to more power if he tweaks the swing a little bit. I mean, the swing is beautiful. It's a direct path to the ball. He uses a small toe tap. He's got really good timing. It's a fast bat. And if he can lift more, I think there's 20 home run potential with really good batting average and OBP here. Does he wind up at first base long term? Possibly. I think that's a real possibility that we're looking at, which then puts a little more pressure on the power in the bat. But Mike Boeve's definitely somebody to know. There's a lot to like in Mike Boeve's profile. Tommy White, LSU star, NC State his first year, drafted by the Athletics. Everybody loves him. It's a big power bat. He hit 27 home runs as a true freshman in NC State. He hit 24 home runs in the sophomore and junior year. It's an aggressive profile, though, with Tommy Tanks. Just real quick, I mean, the chase rates have been high. It was 38% in 2023 and 32% in 2024. So those marks are concerning. Contact rates are respectable, though. I think the power is certainly there. But I also think Tommy White could move to first base. Again, much pressure on that bat. Brock Wilken is probably a good talking point before we get out of here. Wilken's fascinating. 2023 first-round pick. He was one of the most prolific power hitters in college baseball in his time. He had 31 home runs during his junior season at Wake, and he had 71 career home runs. Pretty absurd. The contact skills improved substantially during that junior year, which did lead to a pretty impressive 345, 506, 807 slash. There were some quieted concerns about the hit tool at that point. He can get passive a bit. Honestly, 2024 was rough. Also, 2024 was marked by, he got hit in the face by a pitch on April 11th. He was really never the same after coming back. The body backed up on Wilken a little bit. There's some other off-the-field things that Wilken's dealt with in his personal life, which are worth noting. He played. I mean, he came back in May, which is a quick recovery. But things went south really quick in August. Final 34 games, he had 116. Dropped the season-long average below the Mendoza line. He had 3 home runs over that span. He struck out in 37% of plate appearances, and he had a 63% contact rate on all swings. Now, I saw Wilken in the Arizona Fall League. It's another case where, like, Wilken just had other stuff going on. They sent him to the Arizona Fall League to work on things. I don't think his mind was fully there. He struggled. It wasn't great. What do we make of Brock Wilken? I don't really know, to be honest with you. One final player to talk about. This might be a sleeper from the 2024 draft class, and that's Carson DeMartini. He had a very successful career at Virginia Tech. 4th-round pick. He actually had a down 2024, which led to that following the draft. He was talked about as a potential first-rounder. Entering the year, he struck out in 27% of plate appearances. I mean, that's enough to drop your stock substantially when you're striking out that much in college against ACC competition. He's still at 21 home runs. The underlying college metrics are still really good. He had a 91-mile-an-hour average exit velocity. He had a 106 9th percentile. Those things are worth noting. He hits the ball at ideal launch angles, and he had one of the highest pull rates on line drives and fly balls in college baseball. The issue is whiffs. He had a 72.5% contact rate on pitches in the zone. That's terrible. And 64% overall. The interesting thing is he made a swing change entering pro ball, and the results came. In his small sample, he lowered his hands, he quieted the leg kick, and the contact rate soared. It was a small sample, 104 plate appearances after being drafted. He had an 80% overall contact rate in his pro debut, 85% end zone contact rate on those swings, and he chased just 20% of pitches out of the zone. It was a drastic change. The power was still there. He didn't sacrifice power. He just made a few mechanical tweaks, and it paid off. Watch Carson DeMartini this year. He could really pop. As are these other draftees, Billy Amick with the Twins. He was former Tennessee Vol. He puts up some absurd power numbers. He put up some decent contact rates in his debut. And Cale Fountain. I mean, Cale Fountain, 6'5", third baseman with the Padres. Impressive frame, impressive athlete, really big power. Watch Kel Fountain this year. That's going to do it for our third base episode. Hope you find this interesting. Hope you've learned something new. Thank you for tuning in as always. We'll catch you tomorrow. But until then, take care. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and be sure to sub here on YouTube as well if you're watching. Have a great day.